It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
I want to welcome back to the show. We have Jan Morgan is back with us. Jan, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great, Paul. How are you?
Doing great. Glad that you're here. So, I've been following your social media posts. I know everybody else has as well, specifically about this case where a man was wrongfully charged in Forrest City. And I understand you called the Forrest City Police Department, and so far, the gun was returned back to Mr. Chadwick, and the charges are not being pursued now. What can you tell us about what you did?
Well, first of all, let's can we back up just a little bit, because Patron 746, the Arkansas Liberty Coalition, has been working on that case for weeks and weeks. I was involved, kind of just sitting in the background, waiting for them to turn me loose on the city, because once somebody, with the media calls and gets involved, things usually happen very quickly, and either the agency was going to bow up and fight back, or they would start saying, okay, open lines of communication and start talking. So the groundwork was being laid to make sure that all the ducks were in a row to wage a legal battle if necessary. And that's what the Arkansas Liberty Coalition was doing along with Patriots 746 group. So I was in the background. But then finally, when it looked like, this was dragging on, and Jonathan Chadwick was not being given his gun back, charges weren't being dropped. So just a few days ago, I called the city attorney as well as the city police department and basically just said, I've got 3 questions, and, I'm going to take this national. This story is going national. And here's why, Paul. Because we were told that they were going to, you can't charge somebody with illegally carrying a weapon unless you can prove malicious intent. You have to have probable cause to seize, and you have to be able to establish malicious intent. And that they were going to try to say that because this citizen was carrying a gun holstered with a bullet in the chamber, that means he intended to kill someone, that he had malicious intent. And so that's when you can take the story national and say, okay, if we're at a stage in America where you can just create criminal statutes that don't exist in the books, there is no law that says if you carry a gun with a bullet chamber that you plan to kill someone. If that's the case, hundreds of millions of American citizens would be criminals instantly. So I just called. I was not able to talk to the police chief. I was not able to talk to the city attorney, but I was aggressive enough with it and said, we're going on with this anyway, that all of a sudden the lines of communication opened, and the next thing you know, we don't have to discuss this because we're dropping the charges. So, so that I'm glad that part of it is over, but the primary issue is not over, and that's where we're proceeding from here.
What is the primary issue at this point?
The primary issue is that in this state, in spite of the fact that we've had Republicans in control of our House, Senate, and our governor's office, our lieutenant governor's office, and our attorney general's office, the primary issue is that still in this state, after 4 years, the people of this state are confused about what their carry rights are. And that could be handled with one press conference by the governor or one press conference by the attorney general. And still they've refused to do that. And so the primary issue is we're taking this around the elected officials. We're saying, okay, forget you. You're not going to do what we've paid you to do. So we're going to end the confusion once and for all. And we're going to do this with law enforcement agencies around the state. And so what we've asked is that Forrest City let us come in, and that is the Arkansas Liberty Coalition, and Jan Morgan. We're going to come in and sit down with the police, and we're going to go ahead and make sure that everybody's on the same page here. This is a constitutional carry state, and they've admitted that. They know. So here's a city that has a reputation of being one of the most hostile toward carry rights. That's the reputation of Forrest City. And soon, by the time we finish, that city will be the city in the state that is most constitutional carry friendly. Once you have, and then after that meeting, we have a police, and we're all on the same page regarding that. They understand that his constitutional rights were, and they have admitted that this case was mishandled. They've admitted that. The case was mishandled on their end. They made some mistakes, and they've admitted that Jonathan Chadwick had every right. He had a constitutional right to be carrying a gun, loaded and chambered, that did not establish malicious intent. and that the citizens of their city have a right to carry with or without a license. All right, and once we get all of that, established with the police in our meeting, and I intend also to work with them on, from a media perspective, of having a better relationship with their community from a public relations standpoint, of opening the lines of communication between the citizens and the police department. Then we're having a town hall meeting that evening, open to the public in Forrest City, and I'm sure the police chief will be there and some officers. We will be there, and we're going to make sure that everybody's on the same page so that citizens don't have to wonder, well, can I carry or can I not carry if I don't have a license?
Yeah.
There will never be any more discussion about that there. And then once you do that with law enforcement agencies around the state, it doesn't matter what politicians say or think. What matters is we all understand what the law is now.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned the word confusion. Some of that is becoming more and more clear in terms of what the law is because of things like, what you're talking about doing. Also, you have now, 7-0? There's 7 attempts to charge somebody, but either they're acquitted or the prosecutors drop the charges. And here's another
And the reason
example.
they drop the charges is because they know they can't win in the court of law.
Right.
The law is on our side. It's very clear, the Arkansas State Constitution. I mean, we have repeatedly, and then the Taft case even validated once again, and that was in the Arkansas Court of Appeals, which is now Supreme Court level because it cannot go any higher.
And on that, when you mention the Attorney General, when you mention the governor, they're not basically willing to come out and say, because the Arkansas State Police budget, apparently, they're not willing to come out and say what the actual reality of our gun laws are.
Actually, you're being nice. I'm going to take it a step further. They are responsible for the confusion. And the governor saying on his Facebook page, and I took a screenshot of it, and I've posted it repeatedly, when he said, Arkansas is a constitutional carry state, quote, but that is not inconsistent with a licensing requirement to carry concealed. And still, you should check with your county prosecutor because it's subject to interpretation. No, it's not. Your rights are not subject to interpretation. And he, with that one post, created more confusion.
Well,
and he's wrong.
What I would say is we're in a battle of time, and we've got to outlast them. The fact that the Taft case, the fact that you have a judge in dicta writing in that opinion what the Patriots of Act 746, what you have been saying for 5 years, establishing that it's not that is a huge victory. We're going to have to. My prediction, my feeling on this, Jan, is we're going to have to outlast the legislative session coming up in January because they're going to try. I believe, I have this gut feeling, they're going to try to, quote, clarify, and I think that will result in a reduction of our gun rights because of the Arkansas State Police budget, because of the money. And so
Which is extremely sad because Republicans are in control. And what they're going to try to do, too, is they're talking about this bill that's going to, in the state of Arkansas, you're going to get a lifetime concealed carry, and we're going to lower the rate of the concealed carry permit with Arkansas State Police. We're going to cut it down to $50. I don't know if you've had anybody talk about that, but I was looking at Senator Trent Garner's page last night, and I said, wait a minute, what's the point of reducing the rate of the concealed carry license in the state of Arkansas if that license, after you do that, is no longer reciprocal with any state, okay? So you lose your reciprocity as an Arkansas citizen under that license, number one. Number two, it's no longer any good to buy a gun with because once you do a lifetime concealed license, you're not going through the background check, and so you cannot use it to purchase a firearm anymore.
Yeah. And
so that's the only reason. And so since people don't need the license, why would anybody even buy one at that point?
Yeah.
So what's the point of misleading citizens and saying, oh, you're going to get a lifetime carry permit, but it's not going to be good anymore.
So you're saying, and just to be clear, because I saw the post, we're working on bills to give you a lifetime concealed carry, but that would mean that the other states would no longer reciprocate because they want you to be reassessed. Right.
They want that federal background check, and once you get a lifetime license, you're no longer subjected to the federal background check. So, but my question is this: do these legislators not even talk to anyone before they come up with these bills? Do they not talk to anyone that actually is involved in concealed carry and understand why citizens get the permit to begin with? Paul, you know me, of all people, I'm a Second Amendment advocate. I don't want a concealed carry permit, but because I travel to states outside of Arkansas I still want to carry my gun. And until we get constitutional carry nationally, that's why I have a license, and it makes it easier to buy a gun. But do you think I'm going to keep or purchase an Arkansas license if it's not going to be any good in these surrounding states? And if it's not going to be any good to purchase a firearm, what's the point?
Yeah.
So I don't
What
understand.
you're pointing out,
there.
unintended consequences. They need to consult certainly with other people. Just but a lot of times people think, well, if I'm an attorney, then I already know, and that's just not necessarily the case. There's a lot of not every attorney is a great attorney. Anyway, Jan Morgan, thank you for the work that you've done. I know Mr. Chadwick is grateful. He's got his gun back, and he's not going to have to go to court now. So thank you so much for everything that you've done, Jan. I'll give you the last word.
Yes, and even furthermore, not only Jonathan Chadwick, the citizens of Forrest City will no longer have to worry about this particular issue.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
That's exciting to know.
All right, Jan, you have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much.
Right,
folks.